All this week on Channel 5, ABC has presented North and South, a miniseries dramatizing the days leading up to the Civil War.
And tonight, in part 4 of his series, A House Divided, our special correspondent, Clark Booth, looks at the Civil War's famous battles where ancient valor ran head-on into modern technology.
Men marched off to the Civil War singing. They were lambs being led to the slaughter. This would be slowly realized, but by the Battle of Antietam, it was clear. It is a quiet, forgotten place today, little change from September of 1862, when the armies of Robert E. Lee and George McClellan met here rather accidentally. It was a crucial, if qualified, Union victory, and it led Abraham Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, thus establishing a moral basis for the war, and that kept the Europeans out of it. But the price for all of this was terrible. Into the lore of the most awful vengeance was entered the meeting in Farmer Miller's cornfield. 3 hours that encompassed the most concentrated fury in American history. And the showdown at Burnside Stone Bridge. There were 23,000 casualties, making it the bloodiest day in American history. Here, the prophecy of Mad John Brown was realized, for he had said, "There can be no remission of sin without the shedding of rivers of blood." It was stunning to consider that on both sides it had been welcomed with such relish.
In January of 1861, on the eve of the conflict, a Concord, New Hampshire newspaper declared in an editorial that war is not the worst of evils, and that it may even be the precursor of great blessings.
Both sides devoutly believed that. It accounts, if anything can, for the majestic sorrow of Gettysburg, where in 3 days fighting in July of '63, there were 54,000 casualties.
The intensity that came to it came because the young men involved had, to use the words of a later Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Oliver Wendell Holmes, who fought here at Fredericksburg, he said, "When we were young, our souls were touched with fire." They came from a much simpler time when there was no doubt about the importance of what they understood as patriotism, honor, bravery, relationships with your peers under arms, and they did things that people wouldn't do today.
The climax of Gettysburg was the doomed charge of the Confederate force under General George Pickett across the now so peaceful reaches of Cemetery Hill. It was both terrible and grand, a spectacle of valor in all of its folly, and it was the end of an age. When, the next year, the huge Union force under General Ulysses Grant moved south, it was to wage a new kind of war, total war, the alliance of massive human and industrial resources fighting with no holds barred.
What happened here at Petersburg presaged that most fiendish feature of World War I, trench warfare, in which it was brilliantly demonstrated just how totally demoralizing warfare could be made to be.
The Virginia killing fields of the Wilderness, Spotsylvania Courthouse, Cold Harbor, Petersburg are lonely preserves now set aside for all time to memorialize combat that horrified the world at that time. This bold new war of attrition, triage, with its contempt for the distinction between soldier and civilian.
Now, of course, we don't blink at such things. We firebomb Dresden and so on, and tens and dozens of thousands of people die in a night. But I hate in 1864, I just kind of quiver at the thought of the United States turning that corner and starting to make war on civilians.
And we did.
We did, yes.
The little lady who wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic caught the essence of it when she said, "God had unloosed his terrible swift sword on the land." It was all of that. This is Clark Booth reporting.
Well,